Lecture 1 gave you the map. This lecture gives you the exam. A neuro assessment isn't a checklist you rush through to chart neuro intact. It's how you catch a bleed expanding, a stroke evolving, or a patient quietly slipping toward herniation, often hours before a monitor tells you anything is wrong. By the end of this lecture, you'll be able to perform and interpret a systematic neuro exam. Level of consciousness, pupils, cranial nerves, and motor and sensory function. The same sequence every time on every patient. The single most sensitive indicator of neurological status is level of consciousness. Not pupils, not motor strength. LOC changes first, and it changes before other signs do. We measure it with the Glasgow Coma scale, or GCS. 3 categories: eye-opening, verbal response, and motor response. Eye-opening is scored 1 to 4. 4 is spontaneous, eyes open on their own. 3 is opening to voice. 2 is opening to painful stimulus. 1 is no eye-opening at all. Verbal response is scored 1 to 5. 5 is oriented and appropriate. 4 is confused conversation. 3 is inappropriate words. 2 is incomprehensible sounds. 1 is no verbal response. Motor response is scored 1 to 6, and this is the most predictive of the 3. 6 is obeying commands. 5 is localizing to pain, reaching toward the stimulus. 4 is withdrawing from pain. 3 is abnormal flexion, decorticate posturing. 2 is abnormal extension, decerebrate posturing. 1 is no motor response. Add the 3 scores together for a total between 3 and 15. A GCS of 15 is fully alert. Below 8 generally means the airway is at risk and the patient cannot protect it. That's the number that changes the whole plan of care. After LOC, assess pupils. You're checking size, shape, equality, and reactivity to light, often remembered as PERRLA. Pupils equal, round, reactive to light and accommodation. Normal pupil size is roughly 2 to 5 millimeters, and both sides should be equal. A difference of more than 1 millimeter between pupils is called anisocoria, and in a patient with a new neuro injury, that's not a normal variant, it's a red flag. Reactivity matters as much as size. Shine light into one eye, that pupil should constrict, and so should the opposite pupil, that's the consensual response. A pupil that is fixed and dilated, especially a new finding on one side, suggests compression of the third cranial nerve, often from rising pressure pushing the brain against it. This is a late, ominous sign. Don't wait to report it. You don't need to test all 12 cranial nerves on every patient, but a few are your fastest bedside indicators of brainstem function. Cranial nerve 2, the optic nerve, and 3, the oculomotor nerve, are what you're already checking with pupils. Cranial nerve 7, the facial nerve. Ask the patient to smile, raise their eyebrows, puff their cheeks. Look for asymmetry. One side drooping is a classic stroke finding. Cranial nerves 9 and 10, glossopharyngeal and vagus. This is your gag and swallow function. If it's impaired, your patient is at aspiration risk, and that changes your diet order before anyone else even asks. Cranial nerve 12, the hypoglossal nerve. Have the patient stick out their tongue. Deviation to one side points to a problem on that same side. Motor exam. Test all 4 extremities and always compare right to left, not just today to yesterday. Strength is graded 0 to 5. 5 is full strength against resistance. 4 is movement against some resistance, but weaker than normal. 3 is movement against gravity, but not resistance. 2 is movement with gravity eliminated. 1 is a flicker of movement. 0 is no movement at all. Pronate or drift is one of your most sensitive tests. Have the patient hold both arms out, palms up, eyes closed, for 10 seconds. A weak side will drift downward, and the palm will pronate, turn inward. This can show up before you'd ever detect weakness on a manual strength test. Deep tendon reflexes round out the motor picture. You're grading them 0 to 4+. 0 is no response at all. 1+ is diminished. 2+ is the normal average response. 3+ is brisker than average, but still considered normal. 4+ is hyperactive, and by definition comes with clonus, a rhythmic, oscillating beat you can feel when you hold the foot in dorsiflexion. The pattern matters more than any single reflex. Hyperreflexia points to an upper motor neuron lesion. Think stroke, spinal cord compression from above. Hyporeflexia points to a lower motor neuron or peripheral nerve problem instead. One specific test to know, the Babinski sign. Stroke the lateral sole of the foot from heel toward the toes. A normal adult response is the toes curling downward. A positive Babinski, the big toe going up, the other toes fanning out, is abnormal in anyone past infancy, and it's a classic sign of a corticospinal tract lesion. Sensory exam goes beyond light touch. You're also checking pain and temperature, different pathway, different information, and proprioception, whether the patient can tell you if their toe is being moved up or down with their eyes closed. Always compare side to side and map any deficit. Does it follow a single nerve, a dermatome, or does it look like a stocking glove pattern that suggests something more diffuse? Coordination testing screens the cerebellum. Finger to nose. The patient touches your finger, then their own nose, back and forth, watching for smooth accuracy versus an overshooting tremor. Heel to shin does the same thing for the legs. Gait matters too, if your patient is able to stand. Watch a normal walk, then have them walk heel to toe in a straight line, tandem gait. An unsteady, wide-based, or uncoordinated gait can be your first cerebellar clue before you ever get to finger to nose. The Romberg test checks something different, proprioception, not cerebellar function directly. Have the patient stand with feet together, first with eyes open, then closed. If they're steady with eyes open, but sway or nearly fall once their eyes close, that's a positive Romberg, and it points to a dorsal column or proprioceptive problem, not the cerebellum. Cerebellar disease causes instability whether the eyes are open or closed. There's one more piece of the exam that doesn't come from touching the patient at all. It comes from the monitor. Vital signs can tell you the brain is herniating before anything else does. Early signs of rising ICP are subtle: restlessness, agitation, a mental status change, vomiting without nausea first. This is exactly why LOC changes are your earliest and most sensitive clue. We said that at the start of this lecture, and this is why. But there's a late, unmistakable pattern called Cushing's Triad, and when you see it, you are looking at impending brain herniation. 3 components: a widening pulse pressure, systolic climbing while diastolic stays flat or drops, so the gap between them grows. Bradycardia, the heart rate drops. And irregular respirations, often the crescendo-decrescendo pattern of Cheyne-Stokes breathing. Think about how different this is from every other emergency you've been trained to recognize. Shock is low blood pressure, high heart rate, fast breathing. Cushing's triad is almost the mirror image: rising pressure, slow heart rate, irregular breathing. That contrast is exactly why it's easy to miss if you're not looking for it specifically. This is not a keep watching finding. This is a call the provider right now finding. 72-year-old female, admitted after a fall, subdural hematoma on CT, GCS 14 on admission. 2 hours later, GCS 12. She opens her eyes to voice, is confused when she speaks, and localizes to pain but doesn't follow commands anymore. Her right pupil is now 5 millimeters and sluggish. Her left is 3 millimeters and brisk. This is not, she's just tired. A 2-point drop in GCS and new pupil asymmetry together are a herniation warning, not a nursing observation to note and revisit later. Notify the provider immediately with the specific GCS breakdown and pupil findings, not she seems different. Anticipate a stat head CT and possible neurosurgical consult. Charting GCS 15 without documenting the actual eye, verbal, and motor breakdown. The total number alone hides a change in one category. Testing strength only in the hands, missing proximal weakness in the upper arms or legs. Assuming a sedated patient's low GCS is just the sedation, without confirming that with the care team and adjusting the exam accordingly. Skipping a baseline exam on admission, so there's nothing to compare today's findings against. Waiting for Cushing's Triad to appear before acting. It's a late sign of herniation, not an early warning. LOC changes come first, hours earlier. GCS trends matter more than any single number. A drop of 2 or more points is a call, not a chart note. Motor response is the single most predictive GCS component for outcome. Weight it accordingly. Pronator drift often shows up before manual strength testing catches anything. A new, unequal pupil in a patient who was previously equal is never a baseline variant. Treat it as new until proven otherwise. A positive Romberg points to a proprioception problem, not the cerebellum. Cerebellar disease causes instability even with the eyes open. Always compare to the patient's own baseline, not just to normal. A patient opens their eyes to painful stimulus, is confused when speaking, and localizes to pain. What is their GCS? E2 plus V4 plus M5 equals a GCS of 11. A patient's right pupil is 6 millimeters and non-reactive. Left pupil is 3 millimeters and brisk. What does this most likely indicate? Rising intracranial pressure compressing cranial nerve 3 on the right side. Which single motor test can detect subtle unilateral weakness before it shows up on manual strength grading? The pronator drift test. A patient's great toe dorsiflexes, and the other toes fan out when you stroke the sole of the foot. What does this indicate? A positive Babinski sign. A corticospinal tract lesion. Abnormal in anyone past infancy. Your patient's blood pressure is 180/60. Heart rate is 48, and respirations are irregular. What does this represent, and what should you do? Cushing's Triad, a late sign of impending herniation. Notify the provider immediately. Anatomy tells you what should be happening. This exam tells you what actually is. Level of consciousness, pupils, cranial nerves, motor and sensory function. The same sequence, every time, compared against the patient's own baseline. Master this exam, and you won't just document neurostatus. You'll catch the change before it becomes an emergency.